Hello. So, from some point in time, you decided to pick up this game. This is Sonic Robots 2. It is a fan game. It is built on the Doom Legacy engine, so if you played Doom in the past, then you'll be very familiar with its physics. Because it still uses the same rules as the Doom engine. Objects are there still. And all the walls are made of line decks, and it is a 2D rendition extended into the third dimension, and that's how it basically renders your level. And it works a lot like a Sonic game. You have the same physics. You can bounce on things. So the one thing you really want to get started with is before you start with anything, you might want to get in the game as just any character that you like the most. You immediately want to go to your controls. Because no one person is going to be the same. And it all depends on how you want to play the game. There are several ways to play. The way I play, and the way that's preferred by most runners of the game, is the mouse and keyboard setup, which is, in fact, very popular in the Doom community, because that's what some people like to use when they play online, and it's a lot similar to how you play a first-person shooter, and it's very helpful because, as you'd expect a first-person shooter, you can strafe and you can move left and right. So these are my controls that you can see. Of course, I don't really need weapon slots. That's something I forgot, because I use my scroll wheel to change weapons. But that's for multiplayer. You probably don't need to use any of this. These are camera controls. They're fairly useful if you ever want to mess with the camera. Note this reset camera, because sometimes the camera will get stuck on walls and surfaces, and you may sometimes want to bind a key to reset the camera so that you can actually focus on what you're trying to do. There's the pause key and the console key, because the console key you're going to sometimes use a lot because it pops this up. And then you can do things like add file, like you can add a character WOD or some level mod to the game. And that's how you get things like extra characters. Of course, doing this modifies the game, like it says in the console, and you can't record your statistics. Usually if you're going to play this game, you want to play an unmodified game, because not only do you get secrets, you also get emblems. Well, you can get emblems, but you can also get secrets, but it's also what you need in order to actually play this game, because all our runs are done with the base game. Well, unless you want to go to the other boards and add another mod. So, like, I'm able to play as this character named Hinata. And, like, I'm able to possibly add Cream or Amy or other characters, but we're not here to focus on that. But you can use that console to add a level pack that you want to play. So there's a lot of content, so you can speedrun level packs too. Anyway, we're gonna start with Sonic. Sonic is the most agile of the three, but he also has the least. He also has the least recovery moves, I must say. He's very slippery, as you can tell. He's very quick to move around, wiggle around. So, as you can tell, his jump dash is faster than walking, so you generally want to find as many places to use this jump dash. And you also want to jump when you land so that you can maintain as much as his jump dash speed as much as you can. This is called a thok in our terms, because that's what the game calls it. It's his speed thok. So So basically, when you want to start this map is actually very simple. You want to try and minimize the amount of times that you need to use the Thok, and also use the sledge, because, as you can tell, since this is a Doom game, if you go too fast up these stairs, for example, you get stuck on them. You can also roll off the side, too. Like, if I use a spin dash, which is faster than a speed Thok, I can get jammed on these stairs because I'm going too fast for these stairs. So you want to do this and do that so you don't get stuck on the stairs at all. Obviously, being on the ground is a good thing for Sonic because then he can actually stand on the ground more and actually use his jump dash, because you want control of Sonic because Sonic himself has very little control. Also, this shield is going to be your friend because this is a whirlwind shield. When you press the spin button, you get an extra jump. Now, normally, you'd have to go around this level, and there's a ledge here, but you can't get up here, Sonic, because it's too high up. But you can use that whirlwind shield to get up instead. And you can cut around the level by going up here, which is a shorter path. And this water also flows back. In fact, water is another reason why you want to jump as soon as you land, so that you can keep your momentum, because water slows you down. As I'm about to show you now. Well, actually, I'll show you after the other characters, though. So this is Tails. Tails is the character with the most recovery. He can fly, of course. Every time you press the spin button, he gets a little bit of upwards momentum. And you keep doing that over and over. Here's another thing. You can also take that fly and use it to retain some momentum. So this is called spin flying. And another thing you don't want to do is you want to not spam the jump button, because every time you press the jump button while he's flying, he loses 5 speed. So when you're trying to fly, you want to minimize the amount of times you press that jump button so you can maintain that speed. In fact, his Excel is so slow, when you start the map, you want to at least do a spin dash, because his Excel is kind of slow, and it's kind of saddening, but he's got ways to make up for it. Also, bouncing on bandits is also pretty important, because it not only applies to horizontal momentum, but to vertical momentum. To vertical momentum as well. And you don't want to land on the crawl like that. So I just got a lot more height than I put into this. This is called up flying. We call it up flying because you fly upwards. It's as simple as that. So that's the basics of how Tails works. And then we have Knuckles. So whenever you jump, of course, he's going to glide. If you glide for too long and have him go along the ground, he'll just grind along the ground, and then you'll lose a bit of time. You don't want to do that. You can also climb walls. You can also press jump to jump off the wall. But if you're trying to focus on this direction like this cliff, you probably want to hit the spin button instead, because that won't change your camera angle. Jumping will. In very, very, very rare cases, you'll want to jump off the wall, but this is not one of those cases. In fact, I've never seen anyone jump off the wall. Any runner do that. Another thing you can do as Knuckles is called lawn mowing, which is to press the spin key when you're near the top of the wall, and then glide. That lets you scale the ledge quicker than doing this, because you get to land on the ground sooner, like that. If you're able to get it as quick as this, you can get instantly on the ground and start accelerating, because ground acceleration is faster than air acceleration for any character. It's also useful, let me show in record talk here. Actually I can't right now, but whatever. This is where it was invented. Because over here, Knuckles' path is to make use of this spring. But if you just like do this, you're gonna end up having to fall onto the spring. And that's kind of slow. Ignore that death. That's fine. It's not like I'm doing a run or anything. But anyway. What Blaze found out is you could do something like this. Something like that. And that's why it was called lawn mowing, because you're basically mowing the lawn with Knuckles' body. And you get all the way over here from that one spring. It's really sneaky, but it saves a bit of time. And this game is all about optimization, because there are very few glitches in this game. And any glitches that you see are very, very seldom, so most of this game is based around optimization and trying to get from point A to point B as soon as possible. There's no like wrong warps or anything like that. It's just get to the end of the map. So obviously you don't want to grind along the ground. Another thing Knuckles can do is an upglide, where you release a wall, and much like Tails and his lower gravity when you fly with him, his gliding has lower gravity too. So you can use that upwards momentum and just carry it a little bit higher up. So you can do stuff like this. All the way up here. Which is still pretty cool. Yeah, there's another reason where upgliding is useful, because when you're going up off a wall, you keep that upwards momentum when you climb up a wall like that. So you can do a tiny little bit of an upglide as well. You can also do this. You can also go down, which is not very useful, I guess, but it's still something you can do. Anyway, whirlwinds are also pretty useful for Knuckles, because let's say you want to go faster than he wants to run. Like, let's say I'm going from the end of this hallway to the other side of the hallway, but I'm trying to spin dash here. I'd have to jump in order to get there. Instead of having to go through the whole friction matter, you can just use the whirlwind and maintain the momentum completely. And once again, spin dash is Knuckles' main way of getting around horizontally. So if I'm trying to get from, let's say from here to the end of that end of this valley here, I'll want to try and maximize the amount of spin dashes I do, or maximize the amount of jumps I do to keep the momentum. Maximize my momentum off of each jump. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Because he doesn't really have anything to go fast horizontally, other than speed shoes, which is quite conveniently right here at the beginning of the map here. So once again, he can upglide all the way to the top here. Once again, that whirlwind is really helpful for him, because it lets him maintain his speed, even through the water, because the water will eventually slow you down if you touch it. Speaking of water, let's show you what water does. So if you're going through water, all your horizontal momentum is slowed down by half, and your gravity is lowered a bit, but your jump height is raised a little bit, so it makes you a little more floaty in water, but your gliding is also going to be a lot slower. So a lot of times here, spin dash is pretty quick to use, because spin dashing ignores the water physics. It's a charged manual speed boost, so it just lets you go quicker. more or less. So another thing that I need to show you is hyperwalls. Hyperwalls are walls with bugged collision. And not all walls are hyperwalls. So what you're trying to look for in a hyperwall is a wall that's mostly diagonal and goes along with a cardinal direction. Like, these squares are set up in cardinal directions. That wall works because I'm going towards the cardinal direction. But that one did not, because it's sort of sloped away from the cardinal direction, so you kind of get stuck. This one's exactly diagonal, so it works in both directions. Oh, I guess it's not exactly diagonal, looks like. But yeah, it works in both directions there. I'll show you an example of where a hyperwall is useful. I gotta pick a different character for this. So, the beginning of Deep Sea Zone 2 is pretty nice. As you saw what I did there, I did a spin dash and I lowered myself down so I could go into the tunnel. Now, what you could do is you could charge a full spin dash and fly across this chasm. And quite conveniently, there's a nice pair of speed shoes, so we can sort of take off the run from there. Well, what you can also do, which saves a bit of time, and I of course missed that spin dash start, but that's fine, I guess, is there's a convenient hyperwall here. I can use it to build up a lot of speed off the wall and use this flight to carry that momentum. And with that, you can save a bit more time, because there's a crusher cycle at the end of the map. And cycles are a whole nother can of worms, but if you've done speedruns before, you probably know what cycles are. And boy, do we like cycles. I'm kidding. Anyway, that's the basis of each character nailed down for you. Another thing you also want to realize is that shoes double your movement speed. Speed shoes double your movement speed for every character. Sonic's normal speed is I think 36, so his running speed from the shoes will be 72. So at that point, you don't need to thock or use the jump dash, because that's slower than actually running while he's speed shoes. So you don't want to do that. And using speed shoes is a speed of 64, which is still considerably close to his to the 90 speed max spin dash. So in a lot of cases, you may want to use speed shoes instead of actual running, because instead of actual spin dashing or running, because you have to take about two and a bit seconds to charge the spin dash anyway. So if you can make the time you charge the spin dash worth the flight, then it's best to use spin dash for Tails. As for Knuckles, well, unless you get really consistent with his jumping, it's not really useful to use a spin dash jump. Or if you really want to sneak spin dash jumps in there, then you can try them. But the downside is if you miss a jump, or if you're too soon for a jump, you'll grind along the ground. If you're too late for a jump, you'll start losing momentum. So you have to be just right for it. So once you've got the controls all sorted out, and once you've got everything, once you're happy with your controls, you can start speedrunning. Generally, if you're trying to play this as Sonic, you want a time of about 11 to 13 seconds. Because that's around the time that everyone usually gets. You can actually cut through the level a bit through a sneaky route to save more time, but it's not worth it. It's not worth it in a single segment run because it's a little inconsistent. Anyway. The next thing I want to show you is different ways to control the game. Another way to play is with keyboard controls. You can turn with the left and right keys. And you can jump with another key too. You can play without a mouse as well. Just like in regular Doom, you can play without a mouse. You can play keyboard only. Of course, for the sake of precision's sake, it's the reason why a lot of people prefer mouse and keyboard because mouse and keyboard lets you turn on a dime with a mouse, and in the long run, it's a lot more worthwhile to control a keyboard and mouse. And then we have something called, where is it? There it is. We have analog controls, which I'm pretty sure nobody uses for any sort of running effort. Controls, analog control on. So once you do this, you're able to use your gamepad to play. As you can hear, the controller sounds. I can use the controller. So yeah, the camera is kind of piss poor for this game, for analog. But there's one thing that analog control has over any other control, is that it can instantly turn. It's also really good at doing 180s, as you can tell. So yeah, if you are really able to actually have more fun with this type of control, actually control it well enough, you can try it, though I don't recommend it because like I said, the camera is kind of horrible. But you can still speedrun this. You can still speedrun with it. It's just, it's a little bit tough to control because it's not really, it's not fairly well designed, but it's still there if you really want to do it. Controls. So you can turn off analog control. And suddenly I can't use the controller anymore. Well, I can apparently. Wow. Okay. I didn't think it would actually allow it outside of those controls. Yeah, once you start routing a bit, you can start understanding what does what faster. Oh yeah, that's another glitch. That's one of the rare glitches called Eggman's meme, where sometimes he glitches out and becomes invincible when he's not supposed to. And then you start to lose time and you get kind of sad. So thankfully that's the only Eggmobile that does that, so it's something to watch out for. Yeah, once you understand how the game works, you can do stuff like this. So yeah, it's a fun game because it's always full of action. There's always stuff to do. Like, here's one of the later levels. The speed route is a little drawn out, but of course it's a long drawn out level as well. That's fine, I guess. If you like long drawn out levels, this is a level for you because you get a lot more fun. Oh, this is also called the Tetris wall. It's been the bane of a lot of speedrunners because it's a cheap little instant death wall. Because you can get crushed in this game, and getting crushed is instant death, just like in regular Sonic games. And it's actually very good at detecting when you're getting crushed too. Like, it'll actually sort of detect when you're getting crushed very, very frequently. Even in places where you probably shouldn't feel like you should get crushed, but you get crushed anyway. So yeah, it's a little too good at detecting whether you're crushed or not. So if you're about to die, it's faster to hit the retry button rather than just wait for the death animation to go by. Because if you just wait for the death animation to go by, it's just going to be slow. Yeah, there's very few places to sort of stop and relax, so just bear that in mind when you're going to play it. You may want to pick a time where you're awake for it, because if you're not, you're probably not going to have a lot of fun with it, because it requires you to always be thinking, because despite it being a simple game, there's actually a lot of factors. You got all 3 dimensions to worry about. Here's a nice area. We call it the mean lasers, because they like to hit you while you're going through them, and you lose a life, and it's not fun. There's a lot of fun and unique hazards to deal with too. There's some people who can get through this room like a couple thocks. It's pretty amazing. Anyway. I got a couple more things to show you. Something called a wimpy bounce. Wrong level. Something called a wimpy, which is when you jump, you can either jump high or jump low. But what it does, is when you release jump, it cuts your momentum in half. Line 1, pause 1, pause 0, wait, 1, pause 1. So you can use scripts to sort of like pause the game a bit and sort of observe it. So I'm going to pause here. My momentum is currently 7. Momentum is now partially is 6.4. If I let go of jump, it would have been about like maybe a little bit less momentum, but it's now 2.5, which is definitely about half the momentum that it originally was. Now let's explore this a little bit. Now the thing is, the game recognizes to cut your vertical momentum in half while you're going up. So if I do this and hold my jump past the point where the momentum is negative, something interesting starts happening, because if I let go of my jump button, the momentum isn't halved because I'm not going up while holding the jump button. However, as soon as I land on I'll show it again. Sorry. I'm not perfect. No, I'll first show you a normal jump just to show you what it looks like. So I'm going to jump on this crawler. I can bounce on it, and now I'm back up here again, which is normal. I did it again. Bogus. Now, what happens if I just hold jump the whole time? When I bounce on the crawler, my momentum is now 33, and the game's like, hey, you released the jump button. We're going to half your momentum. And so it does it. I end up with something called a wimpy bounce. Now this is sometimes useful, because I could bounce on this crawler, and then have my momentum around here and get right on the ledge. This is something we call a momentum cancel, a vertical momentum cancel. And it's useful in various situations to sort of speed up your maneuverability as Sonic. So like we can just go straight to springs. If we bounce while letting go while we're going up, we could have ended up instead, you know, waiting there, falling down before it can hit the springs. But in our case, we use vertical momentum cancel, and we could release it early. So here's another good example of using momentum cancel. Is I could do this. And get right into there without having to wait as long. Because the crawler is a safe way to get into that tunnel. Because otherwise you would be doing something like this and dashing up towards the tunnel when you want to save that dash to get into the tunnel, because there's a whole bunch of items in there. And in the record attack, you want to get those rings as quickly as possible, so you can, because each record attack has a goal set for it, and if you get that many rings score or below that time, you get an emblem for it. So if you're trying to do an emblem run, for example, you want those requirements as soon as possible. So sometimes you have to route up stuff like that. So it's fairly interesting. Anyway, you can do this as other characters too. Here's an example as Tails. So this seems normal at first, like normally you want to get here so you can land on the shoes. Like if you're actually doing 80%, you'd want to land on the shoes. But there are also something called field emblems, and those are emblems that are scattered around the map. And up the top of that waterfall, there's a heart emblem. But instead of just directly grabbing the heart emblem, we also want the speed shoes, because speed shoes let us go faster. And we can use the speed shoes momentum to sort of help us get up here. This is where the heart would be. It's not there because I added a character file, and that's what I mean about add-ons. Now, I can do this. And I can cancel some momentum so I can get up into this tunnel. If I didn't do that, I would have hit the ceiling. And that wouldn't be fun, because then I'd lose my vertical momentum. But by canceling some of the vertical momentum, I can get up that tunnel. Like, I can't keep all my vertical momentum going there, but I can keep some, and that's what matters. And it applies to Knuckles as well. I have a lot of clears to Sonic. That's the first level anyway, it's fine. Anyway, there's a bit of water over here. Now, here's another thing that I also want to show you, is when you bounce in water, going in the water, you keep your momentum. Going out of the water, you double your momentum. So bouncing out of water gives you a serious boost, depending on how fast you're moving. And if you group that with gliding upwards, like, you know, with the glide's reduced gravity, you can do crazy upwards momentum like that. In fact, doing that is a good way to grab this emblem right here. I'll try it again. Because you can just make 2 bounces, fling yourself right into the emblem. the adverse would be just climbing all the way up, and that would be much slower. But now here's something you can also do. Is the momentum cancel works for Knuckles too. Now, here's an interesting thing that's unique to Knuckles is normally you can momentum cancel as Knuckles, which is of course doing that. Of course, you get a wimpy glide, which is not very useful. But if you if you press the glide just before you hit the panic, you can keep your momentum and vertical momentum cancel as soon as you let go of your glide, which can be useful for ledge climbing, for example. So let me go ahead and get up here so I can show you what I mean. So here I'm holding my momentum. Whoops, I messed that up. Huh. I'm not always perfect at this. But it's a good way to show you that I'm just not the best thing. Anyway, if you glide as soon as you land on it, you can go up, and then you can cut your momentum in half as soon as you let go of the glide. Which is useful in some various ways, some various means. Knuckles is also one of the few characters who can return to normal gravity by letting go of his glide. So that's pretty useful too. So here I'm still holding my jump, and I got negative momentum. Now you can see, momentum is still pretty large. If I let go of jump, my momentum is half now. So, you can use momentum cancel with Knuckles. And you can do stuff with it. I'll show you soon, as soon as I get back in here and have more lives. You can do stuff like this. Not like that. You can get right to the spring. Or, if you're at a higher height, you can do something like this. And cancel your momentum, get right on that ledge. Instead of having to wait to land on it. Anyway, that's pretty much all the speed tech that we have. We're still working on trying to get more. Because the one thing that we want most of all for characters is control. Being able to control your character more really helps. Yeah, as you can see, you get some serious height from bouncing. Sonic can't do this. Can't do those things. He can use the vertical momentum cancel though. And that's why, when you're playing a Sonic, let's see, where's a good example? You want the whirlwind shield. So right here, I'm gonna be bouncing on that crawler to prevent myself from doing any jumping. And that's where the whirlwind shield is, because it can do this. Now now I know this is a platform and all, but the whole point of this, the whole main strategy for speedrunning is to avoid having to do as much platforming as possible. So if we do something like this, we can skip a lot of platforming that we would have had to do elsewhere in that room. So yeah, that's our main goal. We want to skip as much platforming as possible and do it as efficiently as possible. There's also a record attack, so you can compare your best times with other times. So you can race against your ghosts and try to beat it. So it's very useful to see what slows you down in this game and what doesn't, because the Ricker attack lets you just race your own ghost through the levels, which is something that I don't see a lot of Sonic games let you do, which is fairly interesting. yeah, like I showed you earlier, I just added this mod pack, and I already have completed runs on my save menu here. They already have all the emeralds because I like doing Sonic all emeralds on this game. I also like doing 106. I also like doing 75 emblem runs on this game too. So my Brigadier attack menu is kind of pretty full of things. Of every single character, more or less. So yeah, that's SRB2. I hope this helped you understand a little bit more about how SRB2 works. And if you've got any more questions, you can always ask any of the other runners. Thank you.